Hey everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel, or if you are new here, thank you for stopping by. My name is Kim, and today we're going to continue the playlist that I started in the last video. The new playlist is about working and living in Japan and some of the things that maybe nobody tells you or has told you, and you're here struggling thinking, oh my gosh, why didn't somebody tell me this? I'm here to do that job, I hope. This is going to be the second installment of this series, and today we're going to talk about another big and important topic, safety. I'm going to keep it very general because I truly believe that it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You do have to be safe and you do have to be cautious. You will hear people tell you how wonderful it is to be in Japan because it is one of the safest cities in the world, etc., etc. And while that is true, and while I do enjoy a little bit of a sense of freedom here working and living in Japan, you still have to be careful. You still have to use some common sense, maybe a little bit of gut instinct, and be careful. At the same time, you also have to know what to do if in case you are faced with an emergency, or if you should encounter something that maybe you need to get help with or seek advice on what to do with. All of these situations, or some of the things that I am sharing with you, haven't all happened to me. Some have, but some have happened to people that I've worked with before, or I've been in the same prefecture as, and some things, of course, it will be different for every person as to how you choose to solve the problems, what you choose to do afterwards, and how you navigate forward. Because, of course, when you're in a foreign country, the most important thing besides your health is your safety. And especially because you are somewhat of a guest in the country that you're working in, you do have to pay attention to what is in your best interest, and maybe there are a lot of things that you can't change. So if you do choose to stay in the country that you are working and living in, you're going to have to be prepared to deal with the aftermath of any incidents, and I think really reflect on whether or not living and working in the country is worth the risks. So let's get right into it. Once again, I'm probably not covering everything because there are so many different things that affect your safety and well-being. So I'm just focusing on things that I think are probably the most pertinent to people that are teaching or working in Japan. And also, if there are other areas that you would like covered, please leave them below in the comments. All right, first we'll talk about kind of a, well, no-brainer. Oh, Bandit is like on his back. A no-brainer topic, and that is bicycle safety and traffic safety. You could look into all the things about driver's licenses and what you need to do, and bicycle safety, all those kind of rule things. But I'm going to take it from beyond the rules and just some things to be really, really careful and conscious of. There are some rules that are different than in your home country, especially those of you like me and from the US, you are driving on the opposite side. A lot of people say, oh, they're driving on the wrong side. No, the wrong side in Japan is opposite to what it is in the US. So for some of you that decide to get your driver's license in Japan, it is a big process, and you can watch other videos about that. But you do have to be careful because it is very easy, maybe at the beginning, to make mistakes. Even though some of the speed regulations or some of the rules may seem a little too strict, everything is for your safety. The roads in Japan are not always as wide as the roads in your home country. Also, too, the way they maintain the roads might be a little bit different. I think the roads are maintained fairly well as far as making sure that there's no debris blocking highways or on expressways. But you will have rocky roads or roads that if you lose control of your car, you're going to go down a hill. So please don't take any chances with your traffic safety if you choose to drive in Japan. And the same goes for bicycles. I think the times when cyclists have to be the most careful is when they're cycling in traffic with a lot of cars. And also too, I think some drivers are not very considerate of cyclists, and sometimes vice versa as well. Pedestrians too, you always have to be on the alert, because as in any country, there are just as many crazy or impatient drivers as there are in any country, and I think you just have to be careful at all times. And absolutely, absolutely do not drink and drive. Not even one glass thinking you're okay. In Japan, the laws are very strict, and you can even find yourself out of a job and fired if you are caught drinking and driving. Bicycle rules, things like using your cell phone or your mobile phone while you are operating a vehicle or a bicycle, holding an umbrella. You'll see a lot of people doing it. You'll see a lot of people riding around with their umbrella, and although it may be overlooked, it is against the law. And as a JET participant or as someone working and living in a foreign country, you don't want anything that could possibly get you sent home, prevent you from getting a different type of visa, like a permanent residence visa status. So please follow all rules. It's for your safety and for the safety of others. That sounds like a commercial. The next things are natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons, all of those things. When they give the warnings on the news, or if your school closes on that day and tells you that school is closed for the day, please know that these warnings are for your safety. So it's advisable, if your school is closed because of weather conditions, stay at home. Don't use this as a day to go traveling around, because then what happens if you do get in an accident or you do get stranded somewhere? It's not a good look. Also too, I used to laugh because there would sometimes be typhoon warnings and no typhoon ever comes. I once went out during a typhoon and the weather just really changed. It shut off electricity, and where I lived at the time used a card key and I couldn't get in. When my friends and I were driving in this typhoon, the debris, the fallen branches and trees were everywhere, and that was pretty stupid to be going out during a typhoon thinking that just because other warnings have panned out to be nothing. Just know that every warning is for your own good and safety. A lot of times too, transportation will come to a halt, especially in heavy snow or typhoons. And so if you were planning to go into the city or go out, then chances are, if there have been warnings, it means that transportation is going to stop early, and you might not be able to get home if you don't pay attention to those warnings. At the station, they do have translations so that you could see, oh, okay, this is going on. But pay attention to those warnings. If it's something that's going to affect several days, then it's advisable to make sure that you have enough supplies in your home. I'm going to say this right now. As soon as you move into your place, when you get here, make your emergency kit or your earthquake kit just in case. After seeing what happened to my hometown in Los Angeles with all the recent fires that were just igniting here and there because of heavy winds, and people having to evacuate with only minutes to prepare everything they needed to and evacuate, and then have everything in their house burned down. That was a big wake-up call, because I have earthquake kits and I have emergency kits, but I realized they needed to be updated. I needed something a little bit more quickly portable to just grab and go. And that included things for me and Bandit. If you are living with pets or children, you've got to make sure you have everything packed and ready to go. It's probably a good idea to look online and see all the things that they recommend. If you don't know what to pack together, many of the home improvement stores have emergency kits. You can also order them online, and I would highly recommend getting one of those emergency backpacks, putting supplies of medicine or important documents, everything like that, in a place where you can easily grab it. While we're on the subject of preparing for emergencies, especially because maybe your Japanese might not be up to fluent yet, if you're just moving to Japan, buy your telephone. If you have a landline phone, most of you probably just have cell phones, have a place where all your emergency numbers can be easily, looked at. They might already be pre-programmed in your phone, but I would have numbers for, obviously, the police, the ambulance, the fire department. If you have a doctor or someone then that you could call, maybe your supervisor or somebody on your program that speaks both English and Japanese, any emergency numbers. And also, I've started doing this. I know it sounds a little bit morbid, but I think maybe it's important to have numbers of people that you would like called in the event something happens to you. So if you're being hospitalized, or if you have to relocate quickly, or you've had an accident and can't get home, who do they contact? Like, I used to always do this before I took flights anywhere. When you travel, most likely the people that are important to you will get any information should something happen to you. But I also wanted it at home so that if anybody came in to my house and found me passed out, they would know who to call and contact to let them know. That's just me, once again, with my worst case scenario mind. Many times, especially before a long holiday period, your school will ask for your itinerary. For example, if you're planning to go take a trip, they want to know when you're leaving, where you're staying, where you can be contacted, what your flight number is. And a lot of people thought, God, this is so nosy. This is my personal information. When I go, I don't want work people to know where I go, etc., etc. Okay? But there was a time, I can't remember the exact year, but the school I was working at was one of those schools that asked for you to give your itinerary during vacations. That particular year was when there was a tsunami in, I think it was in Thailand, in Phuket and different areas, and we had a worker, a teacher that was vacationing there. And we were able to verify and make sure that she was okay. But this information is because the schools and the JET program and probably other companies feel like they are responsible for you. Even though what you choose to do on your vacation time is your business and Nobody has to know the reasons or why you're going someplace, but it's for your safety as well. When they're asking this information, it's not because they want to know your business, they want to know who you're hanging out with or what you're doing during vacation. It's because they want to make sure that you're okay, and that if anything happens, they'll be able to do whatever they need to do to let people that care about you know that you are okay. So I don't know if this happens in other countries as well, but a lot of workplaces in Japan do this. So remember, it is just because they feel like they need to be responsible for you. So if you are against that, maybe just tell one person in private or have it written somewhere so that worst case scenario happens, they do know who they have to contact or how they can get a hold of you. I'm sure it's probably changed a lot because of the internet, so maybe schools aren't as strict as they were before, but do let somebody know if you're planning to take off somewhere. I'm sure you've read different stories about people disappearing in Japan, or people suddenly deciding to leave and they tell no one. It is kind of scary, and they want to make sure that everything is just to make sure that you are okay. So on the subject of privacy, I think I told you in another video about how schools usually have a directory of your phone number, your address, and in the past, you didn't have a choice. That information was given out to students, other teachers, people that worked at your school. And there was even, back in 1988, there was a community map that had your name on a map showing where you lived. Since those days, things have gotten a lot stricter, and the privacy of people is respected a lot more than it was back in 1988. Thank goodness. So you do have the right to request that your information not be posted in any directory. You do have the ability to get things like your phone number not being distributed out when you make calls. I don't think those billboards with your names on it still exist. However, sometimes if you don't speak up and say that you don't want your information passed out, it might still be passed out. So double check with your office. One of the hard parts is that, especially if you're working at elementary schools, the students want to send you New Year cards. It's a traditional thing to do in Japan, and they may want your address to send you your card because it's delivered on New Year's Day. The option that you could do is have the cards sent to your school and then have the school give it to you on the day that you get back after winter vacation. Another thing is a lot more places are allowing deliveries to different places so that you don't have to have your Amazon purchases or certain things mailed to your house. You can have it mailed to a different location and you go pick it up. I think for Amazon, they can put it in a pickup box and then you can go and pick it up at a time it's convenient for you. I think nowadays homes and your residence is probably a little bit better equipped with things like monitors as opposed to peepholes. Or some places don't even have a peephole. They have just like a chain, so you'd have to open it to see who's there. And why would you want to open the door if it's somebody that you don't know or a stranger? Now with the monitors, it's nice because most monitors you can see the face, and if you want to respond or talk, you can. If you don't want to say anything, you can at least see who it is. Sorry, I had to go get Bandit his food. Back in the old days, we didn't have email, so the way that our Japanese teachers of English got our lesson plans to us was by either hand delivering it or mailing it by post. So that meant that a lot of people were coming to my apartment that I had no idea who they are, but they were teachers dropping off the lesson plans. I have several horror stories. I'm not going to share them here. I'll wait till a story time of people that were curious to see who the foreign girl was living in this apartment. So I'm not kidding you. At all hours of the night, my door would buzz. And the buzzer was loud. It was very unpleasant. And it was hard because obviously if I had a light on in my house and I wasn't answering the door, it kept buzzing. At nighttime, I wasn't going to ask who it was or anything. I just knew that no teacher would be that inconsiderate to drop something off at, 11 at night or 1 in the morning. But I didn't know what to do because I wasn't confident enough in Japanese to be able to call up the police. But it was quite scary. I dealt with it. I'll share how I dealt with it later, but this could easily happen to anyone. Sometimes people have a curiosity about foreign lifestyles, especially in the rural areas, and I was living in Tottori Prefecture, which is one of the most rural prefectures, right? And at the time in 1988, there were not as many JET participants as there are now. Plus, I think your apartment sometimes is passed down from ALT to ALT. So people that were friends or that knew the previous ALT were often interested in who the new ALT was. And it's not just, people may think, oh, maybe they're just looking to see if it's a single woman. But they did the same for single men as well. Obviously, for women living alone, having an uninvited someone appear at your door at all hours without calling beforehand is a bit unnerving and scary. And even for, I think, single men, having at strange hours of the night, past midnight, having a group of young girls ringing the doorbell, wanting to meet the foreign person in the apartment, could also be a little bit scary. Or maybe not, but you don't want to take that chance in opening the door and having a number of situations happen. I don't have to go into all the things that could possibly happen, but I don't know if situations like this still exist, but my advice to anyone is one of the Japanese traditions or customs when you move into a place is to go to your neighbors on the left, on the right, upstairs and downstairs, if you have that many neighbors, and just introduce yourself, give them a small gift such as a dish towel or something very small, but just introduce yourself. To me, I never had that type of neighborhood relationship when I was living alone in the US, but now I kind of understand why they do that in Japan. It helps if you know that if you're in a situation where you need help, you can call upon that neighbor, or you can scream at the top of your voice and at least let the neighbors know that something is wrong. In a situation that I had alerted my neighbors that I was going to be changing my locks because somebody had gotten a hold of my keys and was entering my apartment without permission, and I needed my door locks changed. And I knew that once this person discovered that the key no longer worked, that he could go crazy, right? And sure enough, this operation was planned for, that's a whole story time in the future. But this person went to my neighbor next door that was from Australia and said, I think something's wrong with Kim. I think, she's not answering her door, and I can't, I've rang the doorbell. He didn't say he had the key, but he said, I've been trying to get a hold of her. She's not answering the door. And they were just, just say, no, I don't know. But that was the signal that we had, that as soon as that happened, for me to call the police so that the police could come and catch this person in the act. And we did. Everything worked out. But if I didn't tell my neighbors that we had this plan going on, we had this plan of action, then she might have believed him, and she might have thought, oh no, let me help, and she might have tried to go through the balcony or something. So yeah, so you never know when your neighbors might be there to help you. Also too, a lot of times you might not know if there's something going on, like a fire in your complex, or some kind of emergency. And because they know that you're a foreigner, they'll be able to alert someone saying, hey, my neighbor doesn't speak English, can you help them, right? So I think that's a precaution, but it's just keeping a professional relationship so that should you need assistance or help, you do have someone to help you. I'm sure one of the biggest fear in any country, it doesn't even matter whether it has the reputation of being the safest country or whatever, is obviously you don't want to get harassed or assaulted or become a victim of somebody that is stalking you or seeking revenge on you or whatever the incident may be. And maybe people assume that things like this don't happen. Is not that they don't happen, it's because sometimes people are afraid to report incidents, or they don't want to get involved, or they're embarrassed, or they're ashamed, or they don't feel confident enough to report or share details. And sadly, I've seen this happen to several of my friends, whether they've been assaulted or they've had an unpleasant incident or experience, and they just didn't know who to tell, or they didn't feel comfortable sharing it. And it is hard. But I think now, 36 years ago, people were afraid to speak out because they were afraid of how it might have made them get looked at, or they might feel like, well, it was your fault for going out this late, it was your fault for wearing this, it was your fault for being a woman or a man, or it's there was always something to put the blame on, and it just didn't make people feel comfortable speaking out. But thank goodness, I think times have changed for the better, and I think there are more places that you can speak out. I think Board of Eds and workplaces have been told to realize that these kind of incidents can happen to anyone at any time, and people should be sensitive and understanding. And if you had a horrible incident and you need to take time off to get yourself together, or to seek help, or just talk to a counselor, I think now that's a lot more accepted than it was 30 6 years ago when I first came. And while I think it has gotten better, at the same time, I think it's gotten maybe worse, because now we have more ways where we could feel victimized or targeted, or where we feel that our personal safety or well-being is being threatened. And that's all due from social media and online. And I think now we have to be so much more careful with what we share online, what we share with people that we think we can trust. We didn't have dating apps or websites. And I understand that when you're coming to a foreign country and you want to make friends or you want to start dating and it's difficult to do so. Back 36 years ago, we didn't have such dating sites. Or I take that back. We could put like personal ads and people could read them, but you had no idea how truthful the people behind those ads were. Those were in magazines, right? I don't have any solutions as to how to prevent or how to protect your safety in these instances, except to be like my mom and just say, don't do that. But in this day and age as well, if I didn't meet some of the people that I met through Periscope or through my blog, I would have missed out on some really amazing, wonderful friendships. So I guess I can just say, use your best judgment, be careful, take all the precautions you need to do before you go off and meet someone that you don't know or someone that you're meeting online. Protect yourself, have plans A, B, and C ready. And yeah, if something does happen, or if you do find yourself in a situation, I think I've always talked about having at least one person at your school or your workplace that you trust, sharing information, or that you can confide in or turn to if you need help. It would be probably better if it's someone Japanese or in the home country, someone that is a native of that home country, because they might have more resources or more solutions or ways to help that in that situation. And if you don't have a Japanese person that you can trust, someone in your prefecture or that you know that speaks fluent enough Japanese that they can help you, or at least direct you into a place where you can go to get help. It's probably going to be uncomfortable if it's a situation at your school where you don't feel safe, if it's someone that is invading your privacy or maybe harassing you to the point where you don't feel safe. And we're not talking hopefully we're not talking life-threatening safe, but maybe you just feel like your job may be in jeopardy because this person is, either setting you up for something or harassing you sexually. But unless you speak out and get help, you're going to be keeping this all inside, and that's not good. If you're on the JET program and you contact your JET person that's in charge of the JET participants, the foreign, it could be a CIR, or it could be someone that works in the prefectural office or in your board of ed. You can ask them what to do. It's sensitive, I know, when it is somebody at your school. It could be something as uncomfortable as just having them say something inappropriate to you. And because we are the foreign teacher, and there may be some teachers that want to see your reaction, or they say something that they don't realize is inappropriate, they need to be told that what they are doing or saying is not right. It may be awkward, but I think it's important to speak out. My mind is going back to so many situations. We have had, unfortunately, JET participants leave because they felt they were being stalked, or they were being harassed by another teacher, and it made them extremely uncomfortable to come to work. We've had teachers that were maybe in situations where they felt students were coming on to them inappropriately, and in this case, especially for male teachers, they were really nervous because all it takes is one female student to start saying, oh, this teacher looked at me this way, or said this, or touched me in this way. And all of a sudden you find yourself in some kind of situation where, you're fighting for your position because someone is accusing you of doing or saying something that you did not do. As basic as this advice sounds, as teachers, not even as foreign teachers, as teachers in general, even though you will see things happen in Japanese schools that would not happen at your school, like I'm talking kids wanting to be picked up, or teachers giving children piggyback rides, or children calling their teachers nicknames. You'll see relationships like that handled in different ways when you're with your coworkers and you go to your drinking parties, or if you're out with coworkers. Even though you may see them get really drunk, and even though you may want to join in, I'm going to be grandma here and say, still keep your peace of mind and still be aware and alert of what you're doing. You're not a Japanese citizen. You are here working on a visa. And should you do anything that may be found inappropriate, or if you're so drunk that you forget that you're touching a female teacher inappropriately, that could be your ticket home. It may not be the Japanese teacher's ticket home. They may get a slap on the wrist, or the female teacher may not think anything of it, or just, she may hate it, but she won't speak up about it. However, it could be different if it's you. Do you know what I'm saying? It is, I guess it's, the rules sometimes don't always apply for everyone, and sometimes the rules are different for us foreigners. I'm going to say the unspoken rules. The rules are probably still the same, but the unspoken rules might affect you as a foreigner a little bit differently. So be careful with that. And that goes for anything in regards to your job. You don't want to be that one teacher that does something thinking that it's okay and then get in trouble for it. Yeah, especially those of you who are assigned to high schools and junior high schools. Just be conscious and aware. And I'm not saying that things don't happen. The previous one of the high schools I worked with, how many two teachers married former students. Another school I worked at, many of the teachers married other teachers at the school. So things like that do go on, but just, I guess it's a combination of being discreet, but also being aware of what could happen. Since we talked about drinking, I guess that's another safety tip. Every prefecture or every city has its drinking district or its kind of red light district or area to be careful in. And I would say make sure that you know where that area is, and be careful and be cautious if you choose to frequent those areas or go drinking out with your group of friends. Especially those of you maybe that are coming to Japan for the first time. If you don't know, there are some establishments that will keep you drinking, but you're also at the same time running up your tab or your bill. And there are even some places that will trick you into paying like super high prices, because all the while when you've been drinking, you've been running up a tab by paying for everybody else's drink, even though you never said, oh, I'll pay for everybody else's drink at this table. You can watch, there are many videos about scams to be aware of, so I'm not going to go into this here because I personally don't usually go and visit those areas. But I will say that a lot of times you will find really good-looking people trying to get you to come into their establishment. And if you're walking by yourself, you're an easy target for people to come up and try and get you to go into their establishment. And it doesn't matter whether you're a single woman or a single gentleman. I would even think too, sometimes there are many women that are looking for a drinking buddy, but it's all part of a scam or a scheme. And I get it, because as foreigners, we want to make friends. We love to make friends with the locals or people that aren't affiliated with our job or in our neighborhood. It's exciting because you have somebody that's coming up to make conversation and try to talk to you. But you have to be careful. I can't stress this enough. I've seen friends get taken in and they're out a lot of money, or they think it's just a friendship, but they kind of all of a sudden get stalked. It's just, there are some people that aren't taking no for an answer. And it can be scary and it can be overwhelming. So if you're someone that really values your privacy, or you are really a little bit cautious about relationships, I'm going to go into another installment at another time about relationships, then you might want to just pass on going to those areas, or you want to go with a group of people or somebody that you trust. What can I say? Once again, it's just analyzing or thinking about every aspect and making the call or making the decision that you feel is best for you. Using good judgment, being careful, even maybe being a little bit more protective of yourself than you would be maybe in your home country is important. If you have close friends that you see are struggling or need a helping hand, maybe you could be that person. Maybe you could be that bestie that I, stress that it's important to have. I will say that the people that you bond with in your particular city or prefecture that are on the JET program with you are going to be your friends most likely for life, because you're all going through these new experiences. You're helping each other, you're looking out for each other, and you're also there as a listening ear. And sometimes maybe that's what we need most to keep ourselves safe, is just somebody to express that we need help or we're feeling uncomfortable. And that's maybe the first step into feeling safer. And then maybe together, or you can find the people that can actually help you with whatever situation you have. And as I said, in a future story time, I'll share with you an experience that I had that was not pleasant, but I also learned a lot, and it also made me so much more stronger that I was able to help other people that were in situations that they felt extremely uncomfortable in. So, stay tuned. All right, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are enjoying this series as much as I enjoy making it. It's kind of a blast from the past meets present 2025, and just sharing what I've learned from 36 years of living and working in Japan as a single foreign woman. Well, most of the time single. And having to navigate going through life alone in a foreign country, and how can I help you best? That was a long sentence filled with ands. I know that's something I have to work on. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay tuned for the next installment. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.